following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Okay, this is our latest episode of True Wrestling Fans Discussions. We're going to keep on going with the NWO. This is the NWO return in 2002 to the WWE. I'm your host, Mike.
And I'm Frank. Let's just get right into this.
Let's talk about the lethal dose of poison.
I never thought in my wildest minds when everybody came back, everybody showed up eventually from WCW after their holdouts, that these three guys would be back together again.
We had hoped during the initial invasion, and we'll get into that in another episode.
It would have been great if they were there for the invasion.
Right.
Amongst a bunch of other guys.
Dude, I was checking the rumors every single day, and I was like, where's the NWO? Where's the NWO? And then everyone was saying, nope, guaranteed contracts. They're going to let them expire. Time Warner, the Time Warner contracts, not going to happen. But they eventually do expire at the beginning. At the end, it was either the end of 2001 or like the very beginning of 2002. The contracts finally expired.
Yep. And now they're forced to come to work.
Right.
This whole thing.
It was a negotiation process too. It took a little while. It wasn't an overnight thing.
Yeah.
To get those guys back, and I was following it closely. Back and forth negotiations over money, over dates. And not to mention the backstage stuff, because a lot of people didn't want them back, and they felt like they were a cancer. They did not want.
In actuality, for the guys that were in WCW during this time, like Chris Jericho, who is now the top guy in the business when they're coming back. Yeah, I can understand
because those guys they had their thumb on a lot of the younger guys, and they felt like they never let them get their opportunities.
And they came here and they got their opportunity.
Especially the politics with Hogan and Nash and
it was just a whole big thing, which is why Vince did the storyline like how he did to reintroduce it with the poison and the cancer.
Yeah. It's a little like kind of like truth to that. So how people felt backstage. Hall was really unstable towards the end. He ended up getting fired and in and out of rehab. It was a big mess. But the negotiations, eventually they made a deal. You're probably not going to remember this. I'm the one who called you and told you the NWO has signed to the WWE. And I remember the day I was in my mother's house. She lived on 34th Street at the time in Brooklyn. And I called you up and I'm like, NWO just signed. And you were like, no, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, where'd you hear this? And I told you the website. It was Raja WWF at the time. I don't even know if the site is still. Probably not. And I was like, it's on RajaWWF.com. I'm like, they just signed. You're like, let me call you back. So then, like, you call me back later on. You're like, yeah, they signed or whatever, and then went from there.
I couldn't believe it. And matter of fact, I almost missed that pay-per-view that night of their return because I was at my cousin's graduation, and in Long Island, and I actually left early enough. When I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I might actually be able to see No Way Out, and because that's where they were supposed to make their return.
Mm-hmm. And it was ironic that it was called
NWO. I thought that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this whole story, they were introducing the storyline because you remember Ric Flair had come back.
Yes.
And he was the whole consortium with Shane and Stephanie's shares from WCW and ECW. And the consortium was me, and Vince is doing the whole, like, oh, God, not another obstacle in my way. Right. So, that's where it all came in. So they make their return at No Way Out. And, man, the back scene stuff they did was so funny at this segment, especially with The Rock.
Well, remember leading into it, remember on SmackDown that you see Vince? He's, like, yelling in the mirror. Remember that?
Yes.
He's on the chair, and he's like, if anybody's going to destroy my creation,
it's going to be me.
It's going to be me. And
he turns the chair on.
You turn it on, it says NWO, and I remember that. I knew they signed already because, like I said, I used to follow them.
It was just a matter of when were they going to return.
Man, I went crazy. I was like, oh yes. I'm like, finally.
Hopefully now the WWE version is way better, and because we all know, you start it up again, it's not going to be just as.
No,
good.
It's not going to be the same, and they're older too, and
they hadn't wrestled in a couple because Hogan hadn't wrestled in 2 years.
Yeah, I think he did some XWF thing in like a year earlier. I think I remember he wrestled Mr. Perfect or something like that, but he wasn't really active. But to Hogan's credit, he came in, he looked jacked, man. He looked cut up. He looked in great shape, and Nash too. Scott Hall, but Nash was always in shape. That's the one thing about Kevin Nash. He was always in shape. But Hogan looking. I mean, he was tan. Hogan was super tan, jacked. And he was almost like 50. I think he might have been 50 or like a year short of 50, something like that.
Yeah.
when he came back.
Well, they picked the perfect two guys to go up against the WWE's hottest two guys, and it's a shame because if you I'll get to this in a minute when we get to WrestleMania. Why wasn't Kevin Nash involved in something? Why was it just those two guys? But who knows what was going on?
Yeah, a lot of it was you know what, they just had so much talent, and
by the time the invasion was over, they were trying to figure out who they're keeping, who's going.
It was such a mess.
And then 2002, they were wanting to bring up the huge OVW class. How are we going to get these guys in here when we got all these WCW guys?
Triple H was just coming back.
He won the Rumble. He's going to WrestleMania to face Jericho.
Yeah, but no way out happens. I like they came out. I like they cut each other's promo. Scott Hall said, "Hey yo," and they got a huge pop. And then, but when Hogan grabbed the mic, everyone went crazy. Remember Scott Hall? Remember before that, Scott Hall was saying, "We're not the bad guys." And then Hogan was trying to play like he was good, like, "Oh, we're not."
I think it was all the Hulkamaniac fans.
It was great
that were cheering him.
Because you got to remember, Hogan hadn't been in the WWE for 9 years at this point.
Yep,
they had been 9 years.
And for these guys, it was 6. So
crazy, it's a lot of time. And they do the backstage thing. I think is that when they ran into The Rock, or was that the night after?
No, they did it both. They did both that night.
Okay.
And when they see The Rock, and he was like, Hogan's like, "Hey, can I get a picture with you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "People's chump." And he's like, "What did you say?" He goes, No. And then he goes the whole thing. He goes, "Hey, Chico, Razor Ramon, you, Diesel."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was great. It was
that
great
was the
stuff,
best one.
Man. And this is stuff like we dreamt as wrestling fans.
Yeah,
we dreamt of these moments, like these guys coming together. The real stars of WCW.
And then even when they saw Austin and he's doing his whole what thing on them.
Yeah, he's like, Scott was like the rattle. Oh, look, it's Steve Austin, the toughest SOB or something like that, or Rattlesnake. And Austin just like looking at them. I think they gave him beer, right? Didn't they bring him like beer or something to try to make peace with him?
Yeah, and Scott Hall tried to get him one, and they told him no.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "Oh man." Because they're doing the whole
right. He couldn't.
Thing.
Yeah, he couldn't.
So they cost Austin his match. I don't remember. I know The Rock was on the card for No Way Out. I don't remember if they cost him his match, but I know they cost Austin his match.
Yeah, they cost Austin
his title match against Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where it all started, to where Austin and Rock are now facing these guys. And there were a couple of mixed handicap matches. The mixed handicap matches on Raw.
Mm-hmm.
Where the NWO was fighting them and whatnot. And one of the best promos they did was, as it was leaning towards WrestleMania, was when The Rock and Hogan came out to the ring, and he was addressing the fans.
Oh, what a promo! And
yes.
they were cheering him at first, right? And he's like,
and he's trying to be booed,
right?
But it's not working.
It's not working. He's like, but then something happened, and you people turned on me.
Yes,
I remember that was a great promo.
And The Rock comes out. And you said, you talk about headlined WrestleMania after WrestleMania after WrestleMania. He goes, well, how about you main event one more WrestleMania with The Rock? And the place just went nuts.
But how about before that, when he said, Hulk Hogan? He's like, they loved you. They believed in you. He's like, and damn it, The Rock believed in you. Oh, dude, I get chills when I think about that promo.
2002 was one of the best years to me in
Oh,
wrestling.
my God, bro. Unbelievable.
Some of the best promos they cut.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Rock, and that moment with The Rock and Hogan just was like, I'm like, oh my God, they're like, this is gonna be all. And then when they announced the match for WrestleMania, this to me should have been the only time that should have been the WrestleMania main event.
Well, okay, not only that, so it was supposed to be Hogan versus Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah, well, we know Hogan's thing on Austin,
but it might have been more Austin than Hogan, because what happened was Austin never forgot what happened in WCW.
Yeah.
When he buried him.
Yes, I remember.
And Austin never let that go. And Austin wasn't really in the best place, he said, mentally at the time. He didn't trust Hogan. So when they approached him, he said, absolutely not. And he also said the match might not have been, he was already physically compromised. And Hogan wasn't the greatest worker, especially at that advanced age with all of Hogan's injuries. So he said the idea might have actually maybe been a little bit better than the execution of it. He said he does, but he still does kind of regret it because that would have been the biggest match of all time, maybe one of the biggest. So he got Scott Hall.
Well, he could have given him Kevin Nash.
Yeah, he was not happy about working with Scott Hall.
I read the article
at all. So, like you said, but The Rock versus Hogan should have been the main event, and it's one of the few times where they should have headlined it 100%. But now there's actually two different versions of the story. I believe Chris Jericho's version of the story,
as opposed to whose version?
The man with the 3 H's.
Oh Lord, here we go. Yeah, down my boy.
Yeah, listen, I'm telling you the two different versions. Triple H said, "Oh yeah, I told the office we can't headline WrestleMania. Hogan and Rock is just too big. We can't follow these guys." Jericho said that's not true. Jericho said he's the one that told the office this is a bad idea. Hogan and Rock need to headline this thing. Nobody's going to care about our match. And that Triple H insisted this is for the belt. The belt needs to be the main event.
Because what wasn't it after Rock Hogan? It was like the women's match and then the main event. Mm-hmm. So by the time Rock and Hogan were done, I noticed people's awareness of what was going on. It wasn't as good anymore.
Bro, how about this? We watched it together at your house.
Yep.
And we were going bananas when Hogan fought The Rock. And I was a Rock fan. And I was rooting for Hogan. I got caught up in the moment myself. And I was just like, we were all rooting. I think we were all rooting for Hogan. Right? Well,
if you remember that night, I never got to see the main event. Because if you remember, shortly right after the Rock match ended,
the power goes out in Blockbuster?
No, they blew up the hard drive.
Yes, that I remember. We all went to the store afterwards.
Yeah, we went. And Nicole's telling me not to talk to the guy, and I don't know for what reason, but
no,
because of the whole thing. What was going on there? I never got to see the main event. I was on the phone with them.
Yeah, you were. That's true. You were on the phone, but I'll tell you something. All of us, we didn't even care about the main event. Like after Hogan versus Rock, we didn't care.
That's what I'm saying. The people that were live at Skydome didn't care either.
Right. It was like we reached such a high.
And now this should have been up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, we'll get into that in a second. But leading into it, the NWO was doing everything to get booed. Like, I remember Hogan tried to kill The Rock. Remember?
With the truck.
Yeah. They beat him up. They kept beating these guys up, Austin and Rock.
Week in and week out.
And then they carried him into the ambulance. And then Hogan drives a semi-truck into the ambulance.
he goes out the thing. This is for life, brother. Yeah. And rams him.
And they still cheered
Hogan.
Hogan.
We know he wasn't in there.
Right, we know that. But they still cheered Hogan.
I know.
After they tried to kill him. It's crazy, right?
Well, we're coming off the Attitude Era fans.
No, I know. Now. But to think about how over The Rock was.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that they are just cheering Hogan, man.
That match, you remember, they had to take a few minutes and actually look out at the crowd. Because this crowd was definitely sidewise 50-50. It was split down a minute. You hear Rock, Hogan, Hogan, nonstop.
But eventually it just turns Hogan, though. The crowd shifted to Hogan, man.
It because Hogan was home.
Yeah, I mean Toronto, they love him. They love him in Canada.
But in actuality, he was home in the WWE.
But Canada's different. Hogan's like a god in Canada for whatever reason. He really is. He's very over in Canada. So,
but even when he came back to the States, I mean,
yeah, I know, but I'm saying
the next night, I mean, it was just
he was still in Canada. It was the next night was in Canada.
Oh yeah.
That was the crazy ovation, a standing ovation that went on for a while.
And I never understood the next night, and then we'll get back to the match in a minute. Why all of a sudden they took him out of the NWO?
They jumped the gun. They jumped the gun.
Yeah. It was like, okay, you did all of this to bring them back. You led all of this up to WrestleMania, and now all of a sudden you're going to take them out.
Nash. Okay, so Nash. Again, this is coming from Kevin Nash. So Kevin Nash said that the reason why they did that was the NWO was so over, and that some of the people backstage were upset. Like, these guys tried to put us out of business. They didn't want they wanted the NWO not to get over like that to that degree, and they pulled Hogan out to kill the NWO. But I don't understand why they would do that if Vince spent all that money to bring them in.
Exactly. I don't understand. I think they could have went longer.
They could have held off. Because remember, they called an audible, basically, from what I understand. that whole thing about the NWO coming out and beating up Hogan at WrestleMania. Remember he tells them backstage, "Stand by, I got to do this alone, brothers." Remember he tells them that I got to fight. He said, "I don't want you guys interfering," and they're like, "Oh, we'll see about that." When he walks away, something like that.
Yeah.
That was like a last minute thing that they started noticing that Hogan, the reaction that weekend Hogan was getting. They knew Hogan was going to get a big ovation, and that once they saw the fans turn, they called an audible and they said, "Okay, go out there and beat up Hogan, and Hogan's going to turn babyface."
And I was really surprised that Hogan took the legit loss.
Yeah,
but I mean, it had to go that way.
Yeah, but I think he actually really liked him for whatever reason.
Yeah, whatever he told him on the steps of the ring when he was holding it at the rampway when he was holding up his hand, whatever he said to him, he was actually crying.
Yeah, and Hogan had gotten injured before that allegedly, because again, this is Hogan, so we don't know.
Well, the ribs.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was holding it during the match.
But it was.
So. Was it legit?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, they could have been trying to sell it for the match itself. So, because I remember the next night, I think he was fine.
That's what I'm saying.
It's not the first time somebody's had a K-fob injury during a match to get them over.
But it was Umaga that hurt him supposedly. Not Umaga. I'm sorry, Rikishi at a house show. He got injured it was like a week, maybe a couple weeks before, whatever it was.
Yeah, well, he threatened to break his cousin's leg a few years back. This is retribution.
Yeah, exactly. But it was, I mean, the match. I mean, from the storytelling, the fact that The Rock was smart enough to see how Hogan was getting over that he didn't fight it, so he kind of worked as a heel in that match. If you watched,
you noticed because especially when he was on the microphone, he was getting mad. He goes, "Finally." Yeah, like he's getting mad,
smart enough.
He was coming off as the heel a little bit, but they were still cheering him. But they cheered Hogan more.
Right, but then when he got in the ring and he saw the reaction and they looked, and then Hogan, and he was smart enough. Okay, I'm going to work as a heel. Do you remember when they locked up and then Hogan threw him?
Yes.
And Rock, and then he, remember that, bro? And the crowd went crazy, and then Hogan looked like that. I mean,
I remember you jumping up off my sofa. Bro, we all dropped our soda, and we were all jumping up.
We were all going crazy, and I was like, "Come on, Hulk!" Like you couldn't help but get into it. Now, say what you want to say about Hogan, but he knows how to control the crowd, man. Mm-hmm. He knows how to. He just knows. He knows what to do, And The Rock was very giving. The Rock let him do stuff like that. There was a give and take, They both got their stuff in.
Yeah,
and
he hulked up, and the place went nuts.
Remember when he hulked up?
Oh my
all
God.
of us were yelling.
I think we went nuts.
Yeah.
Wasn't that the event? I thought it was SummerSlam.
I think
it could have been that one too. That my neighbor came downstairs, and Dave answered the door, and they were like, "Can you keep it down?" He goes, "Yeah." Wham! Slams the door in their face. He goes, "I was like, who's that?" "Oh, nobody important."
It was.
Might have been both.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it was when Hogan hulked up or when Shawn Michaels he kipped up.
Both times I know we went, as fans, we went.
No, we went crazy. We went crazy
watching this thing.
Mm-hmm. And he hulked up. Nobody expected him to hulk up because he was still heel Hogan.
Haven't seen that in a long time.
No, and he was heel Hogan. He kicked up. I thought he should have won that match, man. Not for nothing.
Hogan.
Yeah.
Considering that the Rock, the track record that the Rock was on, I mean, it kind of made sense. But but then even with the loss, they still wound up giving him a title shot the next month.
Right, exactly. I just felt he should have gone over. Considering Hogan's return and everything, I understand. You know what it is? I don't think they could have anticipated that happening until it happened. And they weren't going to change the ending of the match. Remember, The Rock was going to go on eventually. I mean, after Hogan got the belt, which that was
I think everybody wanted to be just included as far as being in the list of the undisputed champion.
Yeah, and
I think that's why monthly it all changed.
Yeah. Well, also... They didn't. Once Hogan got over, Vince was like, "Oh, I got to put the belt on him. Just one time, I got to put the belt on him."
I mean, it was fine. I mean, yeah, granted, I love that match, Triple H against Hulk Hogan for the title. Yeah, I didn't like the fact that the Undertaker got involved in the match.
Yeah, he should have gone over clean, but
And then once again, Hulk Hogan the following month after that loses the title to the Undertaker.
Yeah, it was a little,
and then from there, we're just doing this Hogan's losing at every pay-per-view nonsense.
Yeah, but.
And the one good claim to fame he had that summer, and I remember I was at work the night this happened, was on July 4th, SmackDown, when him and Edge won the tag titles. He came out to Real American.
Real American, yeah, because it was the 4th of July. Yeah,
and I loved it. And
that was cool.
I watched it the whole time on DirecTV rather than actually working.
Yeah,
but then he loses it the next time out to Christian and Lance Storm, unfortunately.
But but that match went over well. Again, like I said, I thought Hogan probably should have gone over, but I understood. You know what the thing is, the way they were booked, it was talking about wrestling's past versus wrestling's future or whatever, or present. I personally knew, because I used to follow everything. I knew Rock was leaving. I knew he was going to Hollywood.
Yeah.
So
Which
I was
is why he got booed tremendously at SummerSlam against Lesnar.
Exactly. So I was like, why are they?
Why put the belt on him?
Yeah, whatever. But anyway.
Well, because Lesnar needed to beat somebody dominant.
Yeah, I know.
And he already took out Hogan. Austin was gone.
On SmackDown.
Yeah.
And Hogan,
so Hogan went for the #1 contendership to face Rock at SummerSlam, and Hogan was just decimated by him.
Do you remember that you could see Hogan biting the blood capsules?
Yeah, because he spit it out. It was on his shoulder.
Yeah. Anyway.
And I'm like, wow, that's bad.
That's bad. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, watching that main event at SummerSlam, which again, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H should have been the main event at SummerSlam. If you know your champion's walking out, and don't insult the intelligence of the fans.
Everybody knows.
They know he's leaving. They're booing him like crazy.
Dude, it happens again. It happens again in 2004 when Brock fought Goldberg, and the fans knew they were leaving.
Booed. Yeah, they booed. They booed. The only one that got cheered in that match was Austin.
Austin for the stomach.
And that was supposed to be one of the best matches on the card, and it was one of the worst.
Yep. But
so
Hogan, he wins. He loses. I'm sorry, but he wins the crowd at least. Great
loses
match
to Austin.
Oh god, that was a terrible.
He couldn't even sell the stunner right.
No, it was a bad match.
I mean, he just throws himself back, and I'm like, come on, really?
Didn't they pour beer on? Didn't he pour beer on him too? Was that something?
They did a whole lot of,
which I didn't understand, because the guy's an alcoholic. Why would you pour beer on him?
Again, bringing that into a storyline is just something I'm not happy with. We've discussed that in detail.
So the next night on Raw, Hogan gets that standing ovation. The Rock comes out. They talk about a rematch. Yeah, it would be an honor to have a rematch at some point. I think Hogan says that he wants to fight him again at some point, whatever. The NWO comes out. Hogan rips off the NWO colors, which to me was premature. I'm like, you gotta. They messed up the night before when they had Hall and Nash beat him up, attack him, and then Hogan and Rock fought him off. That was you're already setting them up for failure, and we'll see how that ultimately happens. They have that tag match right on Raw.
Constantly throughout the month of March to April,
Hogan and Rock
constantly. Hogan and Rock versus Hall and Nash, Hall, Nash and Hogan, Hall and Hogan. I mean, it was just an endless week in, week out, and then they did one more where they added Kane to the match before the draft.
Right,
that it was Rock, Hogan, and Kane versus the NWO.
But was X-Pac there yet? Because we got to get into that. The people that joined the NWO.
On March 25th, the NWO, which was Hall, Nash, and X-Pac, were drafted to Raw by Flair.
That I remember, yeah.
So once Hogan came out, X-Pac was put in, and because this was X-Pac's final ride with them, because shortly after this ended, he left.
Okay. Oh, man. Because with Nash and his injuries, it's hard to keep up.
I got his injury.
When does Nash get his first injury in the NWO in 2002?
He got injured. Nash got injured in the storyline. He was being suspended for attacking Kane. So the first injury was just being suspended for his.
What did he hurt? His elbow? Was his elbow?
Mm-hmm. So the second one was actually later on. I'll get to that in a sec, because he returned in June when that happened. Bradshaw came into Kane's aid, fought off Scott, and then wound up fighting Scott Hall at Backlash. So he got involved in the storyline.
And not for nothing, Scott Hall was terrible in 2002.
Yes, he was.
He wasn't acting like Scott Hall from WCW.
No, because his time away from them. Because remember, he was gone for 2000. It was a couple of years.
I don't know what was wrong with him. I just remember when he would cut a promo, it just wasn't as good. It was.
I think his demons and everything caught up to him, and it's just the love for the business maybe went away.
Yeah, it was just he didn't have it, dude. He just didn't have it.
I mean, honestly, I'm surprised he lasted to Backlash, because then he fights Bradshaw at Backlash.
Yeah,
and Scott Hall actually gets the win. So thanks to X-Pac helping him.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and then this is Bradshaw, because remember they broke up the Acolytes. They were starting to break up tag teams. They broke up the Hardys. It's like they broke up the Dudleys. So it's like I don't know what Vince McMahon's actually doing here.
I don't think he knew what he was doing.
No, not in the beginning of 2002, because then the stipulation was that the champion can fight on both shows. Now, if you lost the title to somebody on SmackDown, you went to SmackDown while they became the roaming. It was just total chaos. So, where was I? Now, April 22nd, Big Show joins the NWO, third time.
Right. And so now you got the original NWO guys now.
Yeah, you got Hall, Nash, X-Pac, and Scott and Big Show.
Big Show, but okay. I know Scott Hall gets fired somewhere in there.
It's coming. Because also Ric Flair joined, if you remember.
He did?
Yes. Ric Flair and Big Show joined on the same day. Now, this was right around the time that Austin, he kind of took a step away from the main event. He was feuding with Flair and Big Show. Because remember, he fought at the pay-per-view. He fought Big Show. Flair was a special guest referee. Mm-hmm. Didn't go his way. And it was starting. This is where Austin was getting pissed. And they told him that he was going to be going into a feud with the returning Eddie Guerrero. He said, hell with that. And then that's when they also told him that he was going to lose in the first round qualifier to Brock Lesnar for the King of the Ring. And he's like, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. So he was feuding with two members technically of the NWO. And then Eddie Guerrero just took over feuding with Flair instead.
Okay. But
Hall was removed from the group for dropping the ball that same night in April. But Hall asked technically. They said he asked for his release, but I know there was another rumor floating around as far as why it is that he left.
Yeah, there was the infamous plane ride from hell.
Oh, geez.
But he said that he was sleeping, but then he was also on that plane ride and he got fired right after that. So who knows if he was involved in any.
Well, his track record, Vince probably wasn't messing around.
They canned him, but they never canned him on air, though, right? Like, it wasn't part of...
No, it's just like he disappeared.
Yeah, he disappeared. He was gone, yeah. I remember that.
After Backlash in a couple of Raws, it was like, that was
I remember that. I was like, oh, man. Because I even though he wasn't the same, I just liked him, NWO.
Just for him being there.
Yeah.
Because when he came back, the first thing I thought was, oh, maybe he'll get another run with the IC title.
Right.
Now, this time it's Scott Hall.
Mm-hmm.
No, never happened.
Wrong.
So now the next one to join was Booker T.
Which I did not understand.
I didn't either. Of course, I didn't understand when Flair joined.
I was like, I know Booker He used to be in WCW, but he was never NWO. His brother was.
Unless they're trying to put this as WCW guys.
Right. I was like, are they trying to do sort of like an invasion redo?
Which, again, we've discussed. Doesn't work.
I didn't get it. It was weird. So they throw him in there.
Well, they threw him in there, and they pretty much threw him out. Just the same, because now Goldust, who is Booker T's tag team partner,
Goldie, you know,
he's trying to get in, and he's aggravating X-Pac and Big Show.
And he wore the shirt, right? Didn't he wear the shirt?
Yeah, he was wearing the shirt. He even had his makeup done. NWO.
You know what's funny? When they first put them together, I'm like, this is stupid. But then I actually liked them together. They were hilarious.
It started to click.
It was a good contrast between the two. You know,
they had good chemistry. The time they did the storyline. Remember with Goldust getting electrocuted?
Yes.
So all of a sudden now he's
yeah.
Because a few times, and I think I posted this on our site as well. Right before WrestleMania 19, Goldust is in the ring with Triple H, and he's doing that kind of Tourette's thing, and Triple H is over there laughing. He goes deep down in the cockles of your heart. Come on now. And he goes, all right, you really want me to take you seriously? Like type thing. I mean, it was funny.
It was funny. It worked.
It did for a little bit.
Yeah.
So now Kevin Nash returns. June 3rd.
Yes, the return.
He's finally back, and he brought Shawn Michaels into the group at that point.
Right.
Now this is where Shawn Michaels is seriously considering a return to the ring.
And
he got himself on track. He was injury-free.
There have been rumors for a while. I remember hearing about Shawn coming back, and just nothing ever happened. And finally, that Monday Night Raw, he did he went like that, and then Shawn Michaels came down the ramp with the NWO shirt on.
Yep. And then, he is actually the only member of the NWO ever to never wrestle in WCW.
Yeah.
A little fun fact for everybody out there.
And I remember he didn't speak the first night. They just brought him back.
Yeah.
And that's it. They didn't speak. And then the next week, I think they kind of showed him. And I don't know if it was Nash or something. It was like, oh, he's going to say something when he's ready. And you see Shawn he just walks into the locker room.
Well, a week later, he was ready because on June 10th, he kicked Booker T out of the group.
He's like, the problem. What did he say? Something about, I see what the problem is.
And
the problem is you. And he super kicked him.
Yep. He kicked Booker T out later.
Right out of the NWO. And I'm like, why did they even put him in the NWO to begin with?
The
booking was not good.
It was a little chaotic how they were trying to work this.
They were trying to keep the NWO around, but it's like they didn't know what to do.
And then when Nash came back, Nash and Shawn tried to recruit Triple H. And then I'm looking at
that's where they were going. That's where they were going with that story.
It was going to the Click.
Yes.
That's where it was going. It was eventually going to be Shawn, Nash, Triple H, X-Pac, with a few other hangarounds. It would have been better if Scott Hall was still there.
Right.
But that's where I saw it going.
We were finally going to get the Click.
But the storyline never finished.
Well, because we're kind of like jumping a little bit, but the Big Show. Remember what happened with the Big Show? Remember Shawn super kicked him, and he's like, "Tough." I don't remember exactly when that happened. I just remember he said, "Tough love, baby."
It was right around the time they got rid of Booker T.
It was not too long after that.
Yeah, no, because Shawn started taking out the trash.
But he didn't.
As soon as he got back.
But he didn't kick him out. He just kicked him in the face. He didn't throw him out of the group.
Yeah, Big Show was gone when the group just disbanded.
It was weird because they were fighting each other. Like it was like these guys are like kind of fighting each other, and then I think Nash and Big Show were at odds too, right? Then they have like a stare down. I was like, what is all this infighting? It was like no direction, dude.
No.
And then does anything else happen before the Triple H thing? Are we missing something here?
Before they recruited Triple H?
Yes.
Through June, no, it was just them coming out because Nash was back, but he wasn't wrestling.
He wasn't ready yet.
No, he went in. We'll get to that in a minute when he was ready. But it was just mainly him and Shawn coming out, and it was a couple of weeks that they were trying to recruit Helmsley.
Yeah,
and Helmsley was just like, I don't know, because right after the NWO went away is when Shawn Michaels was attacked.
Yeah.
And they went to the storyline of, Shawn because I always think it was going to be Shawn and Hunter getting in the ring anyway. Whether Shawn was NWO or not was a different thing because I think it was going to end with them attacking Triple H.
I don't know, man. I kind of feel like because he had to make the decision.
Hard to tell because of it never finished.
He was supposed to make the decision, I think, at Unforgiven. I think Triple H was supposed to. They gave him to Unforgiven, and they kind of like threatened him too, right? They told him like you have a deadline or something that you have.
Well, they did like what they did to Sting in WCW. You got to choose your allegiance and choose it fast.
Right. I remember there was like a backstage thing I think that they did right up to that. It was supposed to be Unforgiven. They were Triple H was supposed to make a decision, and then
is that where he had the Hell in a Cell match with Jericho?
I don't remember, maybe, but I remember that the decision he ended up making was whether he was going to Raw or SmackDown. They changed the story, and then he decided. He was going to Raw. But they lead up to Kevin Nash's in-ring return.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
it was an 8-man tag team match. Yeah. It was a mix of NWO and not NWO.
Yeah.
It was Kevin Nash, Eddie Guerrero, X-Pac, Big Show, and Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
Versus Booker T, Goldust, Bubba Dudley, Spike Dudley, and Rob Van Dam. Now, on paper, this match looks great.
Yeah.
In the ring, no. Especially when as soon as Nash gets in the ring, he blows his quad.
Bro, he gets in the ring. He gets a big pop, too, I think. People go crazy.
Oh, yeah, as soon as he was tagged in.
He tagged in, big pop. I mean...
And then he got the big pop.
How many seconds? Yeah, literally. But how many seconds was it?
I think it was 2 steps he took in the
ring. 2 steps, and it was the boot, right? He did the big boot.
And then that was it.
And he tore his quad.
And they were trying to stop the match.
Right. You see everybody.
And X-Pac still going. But it took Bubba to yell out, your buddy's hurt, you idiot.
And then Shawn had the presence of mind, called the audible, and Shawn runs in the ring and does a super kick.
And there was a disqualification.
Well, I forgot if it was a DQ or somebody ended up.
Well, they just stopped the match.
Pinned him. I think Shawn does a super kick and then somebody pins.
All I know is that the man was jinxed.
Dude.
He gets one injury, he comes back from it. His first match back, does one move, gets injured, tears his quad. He's out 8 months until he comes back in 2003.
And it's fun. I mean, it's sad and funny to see. He's known for that quad injury, right, throughout the business. Like it's like a joke. It's like an online joke. Oh, you pulled a Kevin Nash, somebody that gets hurt right away. Do you remember? Not to sidetrack too much. Do you remember at WrestleMania when Sting fought Triple H, and the NWO comes out? Do you remember that Kevin Nash does the big boot? And then he holds his quad. He's trolling everybody.
Yeah, to look what I did.
Like he's hurt. He's like, bro, I swear, I saw that live, and I'm like, no. I was like, he blew his quad again. I'm like, no way.
I love when the Outlaws are looking at Hall and Nash and they're looking at the thing and they're like, wait a minute, you're not supposed to be wearing that.
Right.
Unfortunately, that was 20 years too late.
20 years too late. But so that's the end of the day. After that, they just disbanded them.
Yeah. July 15th, McMahon disbanded the NWO when Bischoff was named the general manager.
So we never got to see Bischoff with the NWO.
No, because the same day it was when it was over.
You talk about bad timing, dude.
Exactly, and that's when they started the storyline with Shawn Michaels being hit by the car, and it was Triple H that did it, and then they did the DX reunion where he pedigreed him.
Yeah.
And he told him, "I'll be ready by SummerSlam," and
we got.
we got a hell of a match.
Oh yeah, definitely. So in the end, it kind of worked out for HBK because then he had a second run. Who knows what would have happened had he? I wonder if he would have. See, we don't know if Triple H would have joined the NWO or if the NWO would have feuded with Triple H, eventually leading to Shawn Michaels getting back in the ring as a member of the NWO,
facing Triple H.
I
think it was better off this way because Triple H being the fan favorite over Shawn Michaels. I can't see that as much as it being the other way around.
No, he's a better heel. Triple H is much better.
Yeah, by far a better heel. So I think it was better off the way it was. And then Shawn Michaels gets another run with the title. But would have been better if he was run with that title as a member of the NWO. Who knows?
So what do you? Well, I mean, I'll say what I'm going to say in a minute. But what do you think about the NWO and WWE? Do you think that?
I think it started off great, but the misdirection afterwards. Once you took Hogan out prematurely and Scott Hall was gone, I think by this point, okay, you reintroduced these guys back into the WWE in a storyline. Now let's just get on with business and come back and just do your own thing.
It's almost like they had no direction. Like they didn't know.
Not after WrestleMania, they didn't.
No, they had the name. They had the name NWO, but that was it. It's like, oh, we have the NWO, but we don't know what to do with them. And they weren't doing what they were doing in WCW, which was basically like destroying the roster and recruiting little by little.
No, they were the ones being destroyed. If you think about it, week in and week out, Rock and Austin were tormenting them, locking them up. I mean, they were trying to do to them what they did to the wrestlers for so long, and I think they did that for the guys in the back.
I know. Yeah, I mean, Nash says that again, I said something similar earlier. Nash says that, well, they were never really gonna, let us get over and do what we really could have done because we try to kill these guys in the ratings. We try to put them out of business. I thought it was a wasted opportunity.
I think it was just a way to bring them back. Okay, I've announced the NWO. They're back. They did their match. Now they're here. Let's just get on with business.
Yeah, it was like a short term, like, okay, let's try to get a short term bump in ratings and in maybe pay-per-view sales with the NWO name.
See if everybody still cares about these guys.
And then we'll just get rid of them. So that was.
I mean, they couldn't just bring them back as Diesel and Razor Ramon. There was just no way.
No. But
not after being Hall and Nash.
No, and people wanted to see NWO. They wanted to see the NWO
against the WWE's top two in Rock and Austin.
Yeah, but
by far, definitely.
So that was the story of the NWO, the end of it in 2002, their final run in WWE. You guys let us know what you think. What do we got coming up next after our
NWO next one is Bret Hart.
Okay.
Another Hart Foundation memory.
Yep.
We're going to do a 2-part series on Bret's single career from 91 through WCW 2000.
Yep. So get ready for that. So please like, comment, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon.
Take care, guys.